What's poppin' and welcome back to another video. Right now when we're building this app and we're doing this whole starting a startup project, there's a lot of stuff which needs to get done. There's designs, there's coding, there's financial planning, there's all kinds of different things which are going on behind the scenes and in the scenes. And for this there's a lot of different programs that I used, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to go through the different software that I'm using and how I'm using it for this whole project. So I use 5 main pieces of software, and then there's some other things I use too, but I thought, we might highlight the ones which I use the most. And because right now we're doing a lot of thumbnails, we're doing a lot of design, so the first one is Canva. Canva is a graphic design software which you use to make design using pre-built assets. And what's so good about Canva is there's so many different assets which you can use, which are done already from the beginning. So for example, if I want to make a thumbnail and I need a castle, I need a princess, I need something like that for one of the stories, I just take a background, I change whatever I want, and then I just drag and drop these assets from Canva, and I'm pretty much good to go. And what's good about Canva is it's free to begin with, and then there's like a pro subscription, and I have the pro subscription because then you get access to all of the different designs, which is really good. So Canva saves me so much time because I don't have to do it in like Adobe Photoshop, for example, or anything like that, or Affinity Designer, and I don't need to make any assets from scratch by myself. So Canva is fantastic and helps so much. Another game changer for me is Jira. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but Jira is a project management software or a project management tool. And what you get is essentially like how I've structured it, at least. I have 4 different categories. It's like to do, done, on hold, in progress, and then I have all my different tickets, which are essentially tasks which I have to do for the app itself, and then I just put those tasks in a specific sprint. So for example, I have a website sprint, I have a beta version of the app sprint, and then I just put the different tasks I need to complete for those sprints within those sprints, and then I know that, okay, I have the timeline, I have until May to finish this part, and this is what I have left. It should take about approximately this long. And if you want to, you can get really advanced, so you can get in like story point estimates, for example, and then you can say, this ticket should take 10 story points, whereas this one only takes 2. And then you can, for example, say that, okay, I should have 35 points in one sprint, and then you just structure your work that way. And it's really helpful because then you don't lose track of any issues which you have, but also you can keep track of how they're doing and how much, if you're lacking behind or if you're on schedule. Next one is a quick one, but it just deserves a shout out because I've ruined my life with this one before because I didn't use it. But Github is a fantastic piece of software which you can use. It's free to use, and basically all the different coding changes you make, you post them to GitHub, and it just makes a repository there. And if anything were to crash or you need to revert back to some changes, you do some messy code, then all of a sudden you're like, nah, I want to go back 1 week and I just want to start over from scratch. You can do that. It's really helpful in case anything were to crash. It's really helpful to use, but also in case you end up messing anything up and you just want to revert back to previous changes. So GitHub is like a game changer. And I've told this story before, but I coded an app before called Sauced with cocktail recipes, and then my computer fried and lost all of that code. So bit of a shame, and that's why having something like GitHub is really helpful. Next one, to edit these videos, like the video you're watching now, I use Final Cut Pro. I've been using Premiere Pro for like 3 years before this, and I gotten not good, but I knew how to use Premiere Pro, so I'm still going through a little bit of like adjustment to Final Cut. But Premiere Pro, I'm so tired of all these Adobe things, because with Premiere Pro, you have to pay every month, and it's like 400 Swedish crowns, 40 euros every month, and that becomes a lot of money over 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Whereas with the Apple software like Motion and Final Cut, you purchase it one time and you have access to it for the rest of your life. So I did that. I purchased it, I think it was like 2,000 crowns for Final Cut Pro, 200 euros. That was well worth it. I think it's really good. It's got some weird like magnetic features and all that, but definitely a game changer. I'll use it for all my social media, for example, as well as editing these videos which go on this YouTube channel. The thing I use to write code, obviously the framework I use is called Flutter. I've made a video on this in the past, but the IDE I use to write the code is called VS Code. And I think this is like the best code editor out there because there's a plugin for Flutter which you can just get all the shortcuts and you get all the error corrections in the software itself. So it's really hard to write faulty code because it will just correct anything automatically, which is really positive. Also, it's got a really slick, like dark look, which I really like, Once you have that dark screen and you have the code on there, you just look like a real pro. once you turn the lights off in the room, for example. So I really like that about VS Code as well. And also I think it's the most popular, so a lot of tutorials and a lot of different instructions are actually written or demonstrated using VS Code, which just makes it easier to use. Finally, what I use quite a lot is the Apple software itself, because I was too cheap to pay for Excel and Word and that whole package, so I use Pages and Numbers. I think it's definitely not as good as Microsoft, but for what I'm using it for, it's definitely good enough. I mainly just use it for the Pages. I use for organizing the different stories. So for example, I get the story, I put it into Pages, I convert it into a PDF, for example, and then I send it to the voice actor, and I just use it that way. Whereas with Numbers, I kind of use that for planning, like if I ever need to do some like kind of calculations, or if I want to keep track of all the sagas that I have, for example, then I use that. And finally, one really good service which I use is called Firebase. Firebase is where I have all of the data for the different stories. That's where I put the audio files, that's where I put the images, etc. And then I make the app pull the data from that database, Firebase essentially. It's also a free service. I think you have to start paying for it once you start increasing your usage. So they're really smart about that, Google. They bring you on for free, they make you dependent on all of that. And then once you start actually having users, then you gotta pay per user and per write, download, etc. And it's been really helpful because you don't need to keep things on the app, and it integrates very well with Flutter as well. So it's been really useful. In addition to that, there's some other pieces of software which I use that I don't really think I need to mention, but they're like this, of course, the online banking, for example, the online bookkeeping, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a couple of things here and there. There's like QuickTime Player for screen recording. I don't need to go into it, you already know. Those are the main pieces of software which I'm using. Canva for sure, game changer, saves so much time with everything that has to do with graphic design. And VS Code is just a perfect IDE for editing code, especially if you're a bit of a newbie like I am. Yeah, that's it. That's the software which I use for this starting a startup project. Nothing too complicated, nothing too fancy. The thing is, everyone has access to this kind of stuff. You can get it for free almost. I paid barely anything for all of these things, and I use it on a daily basis. Canva, Jira, VS Code. If you get those, you can make anything pretty much. That was a quick overview. I hope you liked the video. If you want to follow this series, please subscribe, leave this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.